Hey guys, this is Jillian of Wigglefish Studio, and in today's video, I'm going to be working with acrylic on wood. I did a few practice runs on this kind of surface, and I wound up using way too much acrylic paint. So with this time around, I really wanted to trust that it would spread and work out without getting too gloopy and ridged like the other ones came out. And I was really surprised with how well it spread. Like, it didn't sink in or wound up too clumpy like I feared it would. And in the end, I wound up with a kind of cool grained texture that I would have lost if I had gone on too thick. I did the pre-sketch already just straight onto the wood circle, since with acrylics it covers up pretty easily and it doesn't really show through in later phases. I really loved this like dusty purple color that came out. I was originally going to make the wings gray, and this piece had a totally different color scheme planned out. But when this purple came out when I was mixing up on the palette, I just had to use it, and I think it wound up being a nice cooler toned piece than I originally intended it to be, with like a lot of vibrant reds and stark contrasts. It's great with acrylics when you're working with them. You have the ability to change the color schemes later on. In a few minutes you'll see me covering up the red with this black to create a nice dark, deep background. Since the red and the purple are really close in tone, it didn't really make a lot of good contrast like I had hoped it would, and make the wings really pop out and give more depth to it. I feel like if you had converted that to grayscale, they would have been very similar. I also really enjoyed working with 6 arms on the character. It just gives such a cool symmetrical feel to the piece. Working in a circular composition was a new challenge from what I'm normally used to working on. And it was a lot of fun to sort of stretch those compositional muscles. And even though this is really simple, and I know there's a ton of other things you can do with circle compositions that probably pop way more, it was fun to start with something simple and kind of a self-indulgent piece, because I've been wanting to do something that was more ethereal necessarily, not as much of a planned narrative as I normally do with paintings. I tend to overthink backstories instead of just making something that looks kind of cool. So you may have already noticed on the sketch art that I have added double mastectomy scars or top surgery scars on this character. I really wanted to create a sort of non-binary character that trended more towards feminine presentation, just because the ratio seems to be more skewed towards a masculine form of androgyny, which is great and I love that aesthetic, but I thought it'd be cool to do something a little more towards the other side, since there's not as much representation for that kind of aesthetic. Now, the collar of the piece, which is by the antenna I'm working on right now, was very much inspired by the gowns in Crimson Peak and other Edwardian kind of styles. I love that aesthetic of that high, extravagant neck, and I think that has a really neat parallel to moths and that kind of fluffy, downy look that you sometimes see in different moth types. I thought the parallel between a moth or butterfly like chrysalis process would be another interesting parallel to draw with a non binary character. Now, the skin tone here is coming out looking a little blue, but I think once I add in the cell shading later, it looks a little more combined with the rest of the piece, as well as when I go in and add white, both with acrylic and a gel pen. It kind of brings it more together and it acts as a mid-tone. I think if I did this piece again, I would definitely go in and make it a little lighter, just because it is very close in value to the purple. You'll notice that when I'm working on the abdomen, I'm leaving some gaps in the paint. I really wanted to go for kind of an articulated thoraxy kind of look, to sort of call back to the bug symbolism that is like a bug character. Um, but I didn't want it to look too alien, which I know with with the 6 arms is kind of a far off dream, but having that kind of middle ground where it's not like grotesque, but definitely still a little off. The face was also a place where I had a lot of fun sort of bargaining back and forth between a human face and wanting to add in some bug like qualities. Having kind of doll like proportions in the eyes and nose and lips. That was exaggerated later on when the eyes go totally black and I add that detail in and have the exaggerated eyelashes. And it was really cool to sort of push and pull on that sort of alien buggish look. I really loved going in with the acrylic and adding in little details to the hair, like the little individual wispy strands coming off and around the space buns. And I was originally going to go in with a pen and line art the entirety of the hair, but I think with the acrylic, just that ability to go in with itty bitty lines and create that detail in color alone was a really cool thing that allowed me to not overcrowd it with lines as I tend to do. Here you can see that cell shading effect I was talking about, and I was really hesitant because sometimes I feel like I have to keep the techniques I use in digital media separate from what I use in traditional. And I've been watching the artwork of Danica Sills, and I'll link to that in the description below. But her artwork and how she translates her style between digital and traditional, and it still looks like her, is really cool and something I really aspire to be able to achieve one day. A lot of that overwhelming detail I talk about was a real concern when I worked on the lace collar. I didn't want to go in necessarily with a stencil or anything and really plan out this intricate lace pattern. So I just wanted to give the look that it was maybe a little moth bitten instead. Since it is such a different tone and a central location on the wooden disc, I knew that too much detail would really overwhelm it and make that the only place the eye traveled to, which is also why I'm going in and adding silver ink to the wings, just adding that more textured look that you see in like microscopic views of moth and butterfly wings, and also add that shine that encourages the eyes to travel around. I'm also going in with my micron pens here and adding in that detailing. And you can see where I'm going over the gaps in the wood to add that articulated thorax kind of look and adding that detail and that distinction where it needs to be. I think the line art also would have stood out way too much if I had continued with the red background like I originally planned. It kind of just fades away into the black background and doesn't look too out of place. I really love drawing these like over exaggerated eyelashes. I thought it created like a very cool whimsical approach to the character design, and I might draw this character more in the future just because I love how her look came out. You can also see where I've added the gel pen on the eyeballs and lips and a little bit around the center of the thorax. I need to get some detail brushes so that I can really go in and make those fine lines with acrylic instead of resorting back to pens. But at the same time, I was really pleased with how the pens didn't really leach into the wood as drastically as I feared they would, like gel pen included. So that's it for this video. Thanks so much for watching. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff below. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Have a good one.